Christine Brennon just dropped another bombshell that's got the WNBA scrambling for damage control. This time, she's exposing what really happened between Dijonai Carrington and reporters after that infamous eye poke incident with Caitlin Clark. The league is in full panic mode because this revelation threatens to unravel their carefully crafted narrative about player conduct and accountability. Do you think Dijonai Carrington will actually follow through with legal action, or is this just more Twitter drama? Let me know your predictions in the comments. So here we are again, folks, watching the WNBA try to put out another fire caused by their own players' behavior. Christine Brennon's book just keeps delivering haymaker after haymaker, and this latest revelation about Dijonai Carrington is absolutely devastating for the league's already shaky reputation. For those who might have forgotten, Dijonai Carrington was the Connecticut Sun player who delivered that now infamous eye poke to Caitlin Clark during last season's playoffs.
Harassed by Carrington, finds Boston. Clark gets hit in the face by Carrington and is down.
The incident sparked a massive controversy, with many fans and analysts arguing that it was clearly intentional targeting, disguised as aggressive defense.
Dijonai, did you, when you went and kind of swatted at Caitlin, did you intend to hit her in the eye? And if so, could you just, or if not, either way, could you talk about what happened on that play?
I don't even know why I would intend to hit anybody in the eye. That doesn't even make sense to me. But no, I didn't. I didn't know I hit her, actually. I was trying to make a play on the ball, and I guess I followed through and I hit her. So obviously it's never intentional. That's not even like the type of player that I am. So yeah.
Did you and Marina kind of laugh about it afterwards? It looked like there was later on in the game they caught you guys laughing about it.
No, I just told you I didn't even know I hit her. So I can't laugh about something I didn't know happened. With the increase.
Carrington, of course, played the victim and claimed it was just an accident because apparently in her world, professional athletes have zero control over their limbs. But now Brennon's book reveals what happened behind the scenes after that incident, and let me tell you, it's not a good look for Carrington or the league that enables this kind of behavior. According to Brennon's account, Carrington confronted journalists in what should have been a professional media environment, basically trying to intimidate reporters for doing their jobs.
We got an altercation between Brennon and Dijonai Carrington. It doesn't even have to do with the eye gouge, which we know Dijonai flipped her wig off over at Christine Brennon, but we got a confrontation. Dijonai Carrington went after Christine Brennon because she thought she was talking trash about her Nalissa Smith.
The story goes that Brennon and other journalists were discussing Nalissa Smith's performance and team dynamics when Carrington apparently decided to play hall monitor. She allegedly approached the reporters in a catering area and started yelling about why they were talking about Smith, accusing them of calling her a bad teammate. Because apparently, in Carrington's mind, journalists aren't allowed to analyze basketball performance and team chemistry.
This is the post, and said, on behalf of the 144, in a week that was dedicated to celebrating, amplifying whatever for their hard work, exceptional performances, we're not going to distract from their success. They distracted from the success because, by the way, they ignored all of those players because they wanted to. And to unprofessional media members like Christine Brennan, you're not fooling anyone. The so-called interview in the name of journalism and blatant attempt to bait a professional athlete into participating in narratives false and designed to fuel racist, homophobic, and misogynistic vitriol on social media.
Let's pause here for a second and think about how absolutely ridiculous this situation is. You have a professional athlete who thinks she has the right to police what journalists say about players on opposing teams. The level of entitlement required to think you can intimidate reporters into changing their coverage is staggering, but sadly not surprising, given the WNBA's track record of coddling problematic behavior. Carrington's response to these allegations has been predictably juvenile. Instead of addressing the situation with any semblance of maturity or professionalism, she's taken to Twitter with laughing emojis and vague threats about defamation. It's the social media equivalent of a temper tantrum, and it perfectly encapsulates the mentality that got her into this mess in the first place.
Because that's real professional in a league, in a professional league, to have a confrontation with a journalist because you got a personal relationship with a player. You see the issue there, folks?
The defamation angle is particularly amusing because it reveals how little Carrington understands about both journalism and legal standards. Defamation requires proving that false statements were made with malicious intent and caused measurable harm. When you're dealing with a veteran journalist like Brennon, who has sources and documentation for her reporting, good luck making that case stick. But here's what's really telling about this whole situation. Instead of denying that the confrontation happened, Carrington is focusing on the characterization of her behavior. She's not saying she didn't approach the journalists or didn't say anything to them. She's arguing about whether it constituted yelling or intimidation. That's basically an admission that something inappropriate did happen. The WNBA's response to this latest controversy has been their usual strategy of hoping it goes away if they ignore it long enough. No statements, no investigations, no accountability measures. Just radio silence while their league's reputation continues to deteriorate. It's the same approach they took with the original eye poke incident. Pretend it didn't happen and hope everyone forgets about it. What makes this situation even more damaging is the context of Carrington's history of problematic behavior. This isn't an isolated incident from an otherwise professional player who had a bad moment. This is part of a pattern of conduct that includes social media feuds, questionable on-court behavior, and now alleged intimidation of journalists. The eye poke incident itself was bad enough, but the way Carrington handled the aftermath was even worse. Instead of taking responsibility or showing any remorse, she doubled down on her victim narrative and tried to paint critics as unfair attackers. It's a playbook that's become depressingly common in the WNBA. Deny, deflect, and claim persecution. Brennon's willingness to report on this confrontation is particularly significant because it shows that established media figures are finally getting fed up with being bullied and intimidated by WNBA players. For too long, sports journalists have walked on eggshells around women's basketball, afraid that any criticism would be labeled as sexist or harmful to the sport's growth. But Brennon's reporting represents a shift toward treating the WNBA like any other professional sports league, where player behavior is scrutinized and inappropriate conduct is called out. This is actually good for women's basketball in the long run, because accountability and professionalism are essential for any league that wants to be taken seriously.
Caitlin Clark is way more important to the WNBA than Tiger Woods was to men's golf, even though he was huge. And to then see this negativity, like why? And what should have been done? I looked seriously at the leadership of the WNBA. And how could you not be prepared for this moment? You've seen it happening in the Big Ten. You've seen it in Iowa. You see these TV ratings.
The timing of these revelations is particularly damaging for the WNBA because they're coming during a period when the league should be capitalizing on increased attention and viewership. Instead of focusing on positive storylines about growth and competitiveness, they're dealing with yet another controversy about player conduct and league dysfunction. The financial impact of these ongoing controversies is probably more significant than the league wants to admit. Sponsors and broadcast partners don't want to be associated with dysfunction and poor behavior. When potential business partners see players trying to intimidate journalists, it raises red flags about the organization's culture and leadership. The fan reaction to Brennon's revelations has been overwhelmingly supportive of her reporting and critical of Carrington's behavior. Social media is filled with comments from people who are tired of seeing unprofessional conduct excused and enabled. The disconnect between what fans want to see and what the league is delivering is becoming increasingly obvious. What's particularly frustrating about this situation is how easily it could have been avoided. If Carrington had simply minded her own business and let journalists do their jobs, none of this would be an issue. But apparently, the impulse to insert herself into situations where she doesn't belong was too strong to resist. The legal threats that Carrington is making are almost certainly empty posturing designed to intimidate Brennon into backing down. Defamation cases are notoriously difficult to win, especially when you're dealing with a journalist who has a reputation for thorough reporting and source verification. The fact that Carrington is making these threats on social media, rather than through actual legal channels, tells you everything you need to know about their seriousness. The broader pattern of behavior that this incident represents is what should really concern WNBA officials. When players think they can police media coverage, intimidate journalists, and face no consequences for inappropriate behavior, it creates a toxic culture that ultimately hurts everyone involved. The comparison to other professional sports leagues is instructive here. In the NBA, NFL, or MLB, a player who tried to intimidate reporters would face immediate discipline and public criticism. The idea that athletes can control media coverage through bullying tactics is completely antithetical to how professional sports are supposed to operate. The role of social media in amplifying these controversies is also worth noting. Carrington's decision to respond to Brennon's reporting with Twitter drama rather than professional communication shows a fundamental misunderstanding of how public relations work in the modern era. Every tweet, every emoji, every social media post becomes part of the permanent record and reflects on both the individual player and the league as a whole. The impact on team dynamics is another factor that the league should be considering. When players are more focused on fighting with journalists than on basketball performance, it creates distractions that hurt on-court results. The Connecticut Suns' playoff struggles last season were probably influenced by the constant drama surrounding players like Carrington. The educational aspect of this situation is also important. Young fans watching these controversies unfold are learning lessons about accountability, professionalism, and how to handle criticism. When they see players like Carrington getting away with inappropriate behavior, it sends the wrong message about acceptable conduct. The media coverage of this controversy has been interesting to watch. While some outlets are giving Carrington the benefit of the doubt, most are taking Brennon's reporting seriously and treating it as credible. The veteran journalist's reputation and track record make her a difficult target for the usual deflection tactics. The league's silence on this issue is particularly telling because it suggests they know Carrington's behavior was inappropriate but don't want to admit it publicly. If the allegations were completely false, you'd expect to see strong statements defending their player and criticizing unfair reporting. The lack of such statements speaks volumes. The business implications of this controversy extend beyond just immediate financial concerns. When potential partners see a league that can't control its players or maintain professional standards, it raises questions about the organization's long-term viability and growth potential. The psychological aspects of Carrington's behavior are also fascinating. The need to control narratives and intimidate critics suggests someone who is deeply insecure about their own performance and reputation. Confident, successful athletes typically don't feel the need to police what journalists say about their teammates. The precedent that this situation sets is extremely troubling. If players can intimidate journalists without facing consequences, it opens the door for even more aggressive behavior in the future. The league's failure to address this issue now will almost certainly lead to more serious incidents down the road. The contrast between Carrington's behavior and that of other professional athletes is stark. Most players understand that media criticism is part of the job and handle it with professionalism and maturity. The fact that Carrington can't seem to grasp this basic concept raises questions about her readiness for professional sports. The timing of Brennon's book release couldn't be worse for the WNBA. Just as the league was trying to build on the momentum from Clark's rookie season and increase viewership, they're dealing with another round of negative headlines about player behavior and organizational dysfunction. The damage control efforts that are surely happening behind the scenes at WNBA headquarters must be frantic. How do you spin a story about one of your players allegedly intimidating journalists? How do you maintain credibility when your response to misconduct allegations is silence? The social media strategy failures that this incident represents are also instructive. Carrington's decision to engage with the controversy on Twitter has only made the situation worse and drawn more attention to the allegations. A smart public relations approach would have been to stay silent and let the story fade away. The historical context of this situation makes it even more significant. Women's basketball has fought for decades to be taken seriously as a professional sport. When players engage in behavior that makes the league look amateurish and unprofessional, it undermines all of that progress. The cultural implications of this controversy extend beyond just basketball. It's part of a broader conversation about accountability, professionalism, and how public figures should handle criticism. The lessons learned from this situation will be relevant in many other contexts. The economic impact on Carrington personally could be significant as well. Potential endorsement deals and business opportunities often depend on public image and professional reputation. When you're known primarily for controversial behavior rather than basketball excellence, it limits your marketability. The team chemistry implications of having players who create constant drama are also worth considering. The Connecticut Sun's coaching staff and front office must be frustrated with having to deal with these distractions instead of focusing on basketball strategy and player development. The comparison to the Caitlin Clark situation is particularly interesting. While Clark has faced intense scrutiny and criticism throughout her career, she's handled it with professionalism and grace. The contrast between her approach and Carrington's couldn't be more stark. The WNBA Players Association's role in this situation is also worth examining. Are they providing guidance to players about professional conduct and media relations? Are they enabling inappropriate behavior by always supporting players regardless of the circumstances? The broadcast partner implications of these ongoing controversies are significant as well. Networks that pay money to televise WNBA games don't want their investment associated with unprofessional behavior and constant drama. The league's inability to maintain basic standards of conduct could affect future media deals. The coaching perspective on this situation is particularly important. Connecticut Sun head coach Stephanie White must be absolutely frustrated with having to deal with these constant distractions. When your players are creating headlines for all the wrong reasons, it makes it incredibly difficult to build team chemistry and focus on basketball fundamentals. The veteran player leadership aspect of this situation is also telling. Where were the older, more experienced players when Carrington was allegedly confronting journalists? In well-run organizations, veteran players step in to prevent younger teammates from making career-damaging mistakes. The fact that this incident apparently happened without intervention suggests a lack of proper leadership structure. The referee perspective on the original eye poke incident adds another layer to this story. The fact that no flagrant foul was called on what appeared to many observers as obvious intentional contact raises questions about officiating standards and consistency. The league's failure to address this through post-game review sends a message that certain types of behavior are acceptable. The marketing implications for the Connecticut Sun organization are substantial. When one of your prominent players is constantly generating negative headlines, it affects sponsorship deals, season ticket sales, and overall brand perception. The team's front office must be considering whether the on-court production justifies the off-court headaches. The developmental aspect of this situation raises questions about player education and preparation. Are WNBA teams providing adequate training on media relations, professional conduct, and public image management? The frequency of these types of incidents suggests that current educational programs are inadequate. The competitive balance implications are also worth noting. When teams have to deal with constant distractions and drama, it affects their ability to compete at the highest level. The Connecticut Sun's playoff performance last season may have been impacted by the ongoing controversy surrounding their players. The youth basketball impact of these situations extends beyond just professional sports. Young players watching these controversies unfold are learning lessons about how to handle pressure, criticism, and media attention. The wrong lessons could have lasting effects on the development of future generations. The playoff intensity factor in the original eye poke incident can't be ignored either. Playoff basketball brings out heightened emotions and increased physical play, but professional athletes are expected to maintain control and play within the rules. Using playoff intensity as an excuse for inappropriate behavior sets a dangerous precedent. The fan experience implications of these ongoing controversies affect the league's growth potential. When casual fans tune in expecting to see high-level basketball, but instead encounter constant drama and unprofessional behavior, it discourages long-term engagement with the sport. Christine Brennon just exposed another layer of WNBA dysfunction, and Dijonai Carrington's response proves she learned nothing from the eye poke controversy. The league's silence speaks volumes about their priorities. If you want more honest analysis of sports drama without the sugarcoating, smash that like button and subscribe for content that tells the truth.